Talk to
chat.
you.
Hello, welcome to the 40k Spy Center. It's me and Mr. Tom Layton. What's going on, Tom?
Well, I'm good, thanks. How are you doing, mate? How's your day been? How's your day been?
Solitary. That's what it's been.
Like
a monastic soldier of fortune. Hello, everyone in the Twitch chat. Thank you very much for joining us live. Nemazor, Zandrek, JB2 Twitch, Propagation, Nurgle Matthew, the wicket keeper himself. What's going on? Me and Mr. Tom. He can hold a paintbrush like you wouldn't believe. Layton have got a pretty...
Yeah, in my ass. Great.
I've got a pretty... Is that a Secret Labs chair? Is that new?
No, I've had this for about 6 months now.
Okay, all right.
Remember when I used to have a really squeaky old one?
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
So I just got this so I wouldn't squeak around.
I actually have a draft chair. I'll show you. Like this is how low how low it goes. Everyone ready?
You just don't sit down, so...
Anyway, that's great for the podcast, bros.
Is that just because you're really tall?
No, it's a standing desk. That's all it is. Anyway, hello everyone. Me and Tom have got a great show for you today. Tom actually was at an event at the weekend where he took away a trophy. So we're going to be talking about that and his experiences, obviously, of playing 40k at the event. So it'll be fun to listen to that. And the main subject, of today's show, and at the end of the show, we're going to be looking at, we have a 16-man Captain's Clash event here at the TSN Arena. So it's a 40k event. We're going to read through some of those lists and have a bit of a live react, which is going to be really fun. But the main subject of today's show is the appropriately titled clickbait title, Goonhammer destroys Games Workshop with facts and logic.
Oh no! If you watch the show too long, you'll probably become a racist.
The rage algorithms. If you've somehow joined us from a Jordan Peterson video, leave us alone, is what I'm going to say. But me and Tom have talked about this before.
We have, yeah. I've just got the perfect picture. Here we go. There we go. The tweet has been deployed.
The tweet has been deployed. All right. We'll just let everyone get in the room.
The tweet has been deployed.
Before we even start, let's just talk to the Twitch chat a minute. What's going on, Twitch chat? How are you all? Humanity was a mistake. Couldn't agree more. A BL1 ends up. So who's going to bring the pro tactics? Now Tom has gone all hobbyist. That's a great question. Tom, how do you feel about bridging the divide between hobbyist and tactician?
We need to get a new another co-host, Rob, one that actually knows how to play this fucking game.
Tell me about it.
Because I don't anymore, because I just paint. So yeah, I mean, it was weird because I didn't actually expect to win it. I wasn't even expecting a nom. And then when I got the nom, I was like,
don't blow the lead, even though don't blow the lead. About the situation. Tom, let's talk about. Should we do the news? We won't do the news. We'll just dive straight in. Tom.
The news is just the articles we're going to do later.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, we'll do those.
Yeah.
So, Tom, talk to me about the event you were at the weekend, please, and thank you. And also, shout out to the Falcon 40k. When does Tom do his masterclass video for Plus? Question.
It's true. I mean, I'll show you what I've got later. That might help. So I took this Eldar army I was talking about a couple weeks to the Hellstorm 5 event in Mansfield.
Hellstorm 5?
And it was...
I have a question.
It was 3 night spinners. No, you go
just
for it.
As someone who's about to do Captain's Clash 4, at which point does it become awkward to do the number after? Like, is it like Captain's Clash 43, and you're like, change the name a bit, Although I did spend longer than you would think coming up with that name. Just FYI.
I feel like at the end of the year we can change it from numbers to months. So January 1, and then February 1. And then we can just keep going, and they can never stop us.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'm into that. That works.
That's fine. It works.
Thank you to Fisher Painting, who says this money is coming straight out of his Tooth Fund. And then Pizza Guardian says, use Roman numerals when it gets too high. Yes.
Oh, mate, that's such a Wargamer thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wargamers love Roman numerals.
Owen says, Owen says that we need to get creative. Thanks to the Falcon 40k for donating 5 gift subscriptions, which I honestly think is like...
Salt and Sassy's got one, which is a fantastic name, by the way. I'm a big fan.
And Tabby Gain, I think he's genuinely powering up the chat for the title. He's read the title and has immediately tuned in. He's like, I'm fucking in. This is going to be great. Sorry, Tom, you were at Hellstorm 5, which is run by Mikey.
No, fine. So I took an Eldar army, which was just all the indirect line of sight. So I had a Farseer with Executioner Doom, Warlock, Protect Jinx, an Autark with reroll 1s and all that jazz. And then I had 6 D platforms in 2 squads of 3, 3 Night Spinners, and I had 3 squads of 3 Dark Reapers. And then I had a Drukhari detachment with a Succubus, 1 squad of Witches, and 2 squads of 10 Hellions. Now, the idea of this list is it's really hard to walk into because it'll just blow you off the board, because you can't walk into all the decans and the Hellions.
Can I ask, just for the people who sometimes are a little bit like blown away by what you're saying, is when you mean walk into?
So I'm quite short ranged on the decannons, and also got the Hellions, which are quite short range as well. So if you start getting close to me, I'm just going to blow you away. But equally, if you sit off, I'm just going to hit you with Dark Reapers and Night Spinners all game. So it puts you in a kind of catch-22. I'm going to hit you really hard. And then I played Sean, who's one of Scribner's locals, round 1, with his Ultramarines. We had shallow deployment. We had 6 objectives. He infiltrated his Ultramarines army up. I'm like, okay, well, if he goes first, it's a problem. But if I go first, I basically auto-win. He went first. Okay. Well, if I can redeploy my units after he redeploys his, he can't really hit me with a Redemptors because Ultramarines have a redeploy strat. He wins a roll-off, makes me redeploy first. Okay, fine. Well, now he gets to hit me with Redemptors and he's going first. So he might do a bit of damage here, but it shouldn't matter because I have enough stuff that I can hit him back really hard afterwards. He goes first. He stands on all the objectives, sticks banners up, charges Incurses and the Invictus suits into my army. The Incurses charge a Night Spinner, kill it in melee, and then it blows up and kills the next Night Spinner.
Fuck you, Tom. I've lost.
God, Reapers. Yep. I've got all my, and now his dreadnoughts are all in range of my decannons.
Okay.
I fire all my for 1 dreadnought. And I'm like, oh shit. So he's just walked into me and he doesn't even care. He just keeps walking. Oh no, I'm in some real trouble here. So effectively, I just end up getting pinned in the corner for far too long. And he wins that game because even though I've killed his entire army, apart from 1 eliminator, I just can't get out my corner.
Do you think this is having not played your list loads? Or like...
Not really. I was on Jim Vessel's podcast the other day and I called it Spreadsheet Hammer because basically what this army does is either you have the numbers to kill your opponent or you don't. And I just took too long to kill it. As it happened, I basically tabled every opponent I played the entire weekend.
Fascinating.
But I lost. So it was just... I don't think I'll take this list to a singles event again. And I'll go through why at the end. I don't think it's good, but because I don't think it's good for the game. So then I play like an Iron Hands player, similar list. He made the mistake of sticking his Iron Hands character dread at the front, and then he had like the company vets behind it, and he was like, "Oh, there's no way he can kill the company vets for hiding behind cover." And then I shoot his company vets off Dark Reapers and one-shot his dread and table him. Then I play who did I play round 3? Oh, I played a Grimsby lad who's playing Dark Angels with an apothecary driving around resurrecting Dark Angel storm shields constantly, and he just sat there in his ruins in Vital Intelligence, and I tabled him turn 5. Except no, he had 2 characters left, and then I played Admech round 4 on a board that was very empty. I had 1 little wall to hide my entire arm behind, and I couldn't even screen, even though it was like the big chunky deployment because he's got 38-inch range, and it just felt like whoever went first just tables the other person. We don't get to play the game at all because you're just rolling down. So I lost that game. Round 5, I played against Brett Castles and his Necrons, and I one-shot the Silent King turn 1 and tabled his army.
Good. Sorry, you said that again. We lost your audio there, Tom. What did you say?
Even in the Admech game where I went second, I killed like 1,100 points of Admech.
Wow.
So it was really killy. The problem was it just didn't score points. So then I played against Ed Pashek with his sisters for round 6. So we have one of those. And I wiped out all his Sacrosancts turn 1. I went second. And the issue with that one was it took me 4 turns to knock Celestine down. Not even kill her, just knock her down.
Oh, really?
With all... Yeah, it was weird. So it doesn't really score. It doesn't really have any creativity. I just sit there and roll dice at you, and either you fall over or you don't. Like, I don't get to play the game. I'm just a bystander, right?
Hamsfan is my favourite. He just put, "This game sounds terrible. How do I start?"
Shit. This is the thing. Like, and I was saying, the Admech book is so stupid because there's literally nothing I can do. I can't hide my army. I can't screen you out. I can't lightning fast because you've got full rerolls, ignore modifiers, or some other kind of bullshit that just makes it completely meaningless. Like, his stupid chickens killed all 3 of my Night Spinners and my Wave Serpent turn 1. He had 6 chickens and they're 75 points.
I know they are, Tom. They used to be core as well. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, mate, yeah. So that was awful.
So
But I mean, it is what it is because I feel like if I'm just sat there with my arm and I'm just shooting you, you're not playing the game
mm,
because it's just about how long can you weather me shooting at you
yeah.
for. And if
Just for
I'm sat there
everyone,
just
for
rolling
context, for
dice,
everyone, most of or a significant portion of Tom's army ignores terrain or ignores obscuring
line of
line of
sight,
sight blocking terrain.
the
So
entire thing, all the
he can
guns,
basically it's
yeah,
like a glass plane to him, and he can shoot through. Mm.
exactly. And I ignore cover, so it's just insane. The only thing that matters is trees because that gives me minus one to hit. So yeah, it was just the list was effective at tabling people. It wasn't necessarily effective at what's it called? At holding mission
Mm-hmm.
points, right, or pushing the
Primary.
mission. Yeah, primary or secondary, really. To be honest, it just wasn't.
Oh, it's just
Um,
were you just like I'm gonna fucking delete your army? That's
yeah.
you done.
So for context, I finished 3-3 and I killed 10,600 points out of 12,000.
Wow, that's impressive. Was it the highest kill points at the
It was
event?
nasty. That's what I was going for, but I came fourth.
Okay.
So because I didn't have any Volkite dreads, and it's just like okay, whatever. So I was sat there waiting for that to come up because I thought I'd won it at the end because I thought I'd overtaken Robbo in the last round. But even though like the sisters list, I killed everything apart from one Rhino, so it's like 19, 20 points scored. But
Amazing. So just
it was just really dry for both me and my opponent, and it gave me no way to dig myself out of any holes. If you fell behind, you just fell behind. There was nothing you could do about it. There was no skill about the list.
okay. So that's probably so. There's a couple of questions in the chat. One's from Hams fan. And my first one is to you, Tom. Like you said, you wouldn't take it again. Is that because you felt like you weren't really playing, or obviously it's also not very good for scoring points. So that would be a key reason.
Well, firstly, it was a bit shit at scoring points. But secondly, it was a bit boring for
Yeah.
me. But I can only imagine how boring it was for my opponent.
Or you just being like, I'm just gonna fire these.
Yeah,
I don't. It doesn't matter
yeah.
where you
And if
stand.
you hit anything but a gun line, it's just the most horrible gaming experience ever. So if you hit Tower
Mm.
Admech, like those books, you just sit there rolling dice at each other, and whoever it's like playing Yahtzee.
My favorite thing is
It's fucking
guaranteed that
terrible.
someone listening to this
So
on YouTube who's like pen and paper is like, and what was in the list? Like
don't take it. Don't
I'll
take it.
include a link
Like
in the show notes. So you didn't find it very
yeah.
enjoyable to play with, and you think it was boring for your opponents as well, right?
Yeah, it was pretty boring for my opponents. It was fine for me. I didn't really mind because it was just I could just sit there and roll dice at you and have a drink and eat some chicken. That would be fine. But I feel sorry for my round four opponent who was playing the Admech. He won the game and he tabled me, I think, as well. But I mean, we were just sat there rolling dice at each other. It's not his fault. He loves that book. He's been playing it since before it was good, and he was a lovely guy. I really enjoyed playing with him, but we weren't playing the game.
Yeah.
Which is the game was happening, and I was sat there, and he was sat
Well,
there.
really,
So
really good point being made by Ishik in the chat earlier, and I also saw Neil. So big shout out to both those two people. Was Ishik was saying that 9th edition he feels like a one-player game. Have you got any thoughts on that?
what does he mean by
I
that?
think what he
Like,
means is
I
it's a bit
don't.
like PVE as opposed to PvP. Effectively, like it, I think about this when we go and talk about the article in a minute. When you talk about like engage on all fronts, yeah, you're like,
Okay.
cool. You're just gonna move stuff, right, and score
Yeah.
points. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it sometimes often feels like.
So
Go on after you.
I feel like the comparison between AOS and 40k is really good
Okay,
here.
yeah.
Like in 40k, you have a lot of rules, but none of them are like interacting to things happening on the
Okay.
board. Whereas AOS, you've got things like what's the retreat thing that you can do, or your opponent does something and then you get to like spend a point and you can do a
But
thing.
you do
Right?
have like reactive stratagems, I guess, in 40k.
Yeah, but they're not as meaningful. Like if you like compare reactive stratagem like transhuman physiology, let's take a big example from 40k. That's one of the biggest examples. That's nothing compared to something like what the
Redeploy.
move when 9 inches of you. Redeploy. Yeah, it's nothing. Because at the end of the day, when you've still got a game that's full of lots of rerolls and lots of shots, it doesn't really matter too much because there's just too
I
much
think
damage.
one of the
Whereas,
most interesting things that came up talking about 40k in the past year or so that I ever saw was someone mentioned that it's just a game about numbers. Like I think it was actually the Carley brothers who are like Skaven players who come to the arena bunch. They're from Wales, and he said when you read when you read an article from Games Workshop, like when you read AOS, they tell you like, oh, it's got this rule where it does this thing, right? Although like it's often true,
yeah,
but like with orcs, for instance, they were
yeah,
like they're +1 toughness, and you're like, that's like it's not like an exciting thing. Like, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, cool, they're a bit tougher, but like, I kind of want them to have like they do a thing on their data. I've always said this. I think they want to do a thing on the data sheet. Anyway, so what way are you going to try? I don't want to like lambast it too much. Or what way are you going to try and like change your list up or do something different to make the game maybe more?
I've actually got it written out. So I'm not taking it to singles again. I think I take a completely different list of singles. I also think I'm taking Grey Knights to singles from now on anyway. Because I think if I start taking Crap Wars list, I'm gonna, have a hemorrhage. Like I want to play the Grey Knights now. I have reworked my army list. What did I take out? I think I took out all the D cannons and I took out the Autarch because I can do that. And then I added in 2 more squads of witches, 2 squads of warp spiders, and 3. Well, how many venoms did I add? I added some venoms. Yeah, 3 venoms. Not because I think venoms are better than raiders, but because they're cheaper.
Okay.
And they're easier to hunt. So I can stick like my witches in there. I can jump my warp spiders around and say, hey, at least I have a way to score now.
Okay, cool.
And the decals were very expensive for how reliable they are. Because even with the expert crafters and with the masterful shots and the ignore line of sight, they've still got 24-inch range, which means that you probably get 1 chance to shoot anything that comes near you. They only have a 6-inch move. They have D3 shots, which is inconsistent. You've been hitting on a 3-up, which is still inconsistent even with a reroll. You've been wounding on 2s, which is quite consistent, but then you've got D6 damage. And there's a lot of -1 damage in the game, and you've got transhuman in there as well on a lot of things, which makes it harder to wound things. So as good as that is, I've taken that out. Now, that does make me really susceptible to like dread and vehicle lists. Because if I hit anything that has -1 damage, I'm completely screwed. Because there's no way I can deal with it. But at the same time, I think I lose to those lists anyway. So I might as well accentuate my strengths and give me more winning matchups.
Love this. Talked about this with the good friend. I got told off the other day for a friend of mine. It was a girl. Like anyway, mentioning like you always want to lean into your strengths as opposed to try and like cover your weaknesses effectively. But that's a different thing. There's some great things in the chat. I have watched the Wheel of Time trailer. Time trailer, by the way. I also recorded a video of me watching it for the very first Wheel Watch episode. That's not 40k related, but don't worry, there is. Shut up, Tristan. I fucking hate you.
What even is Wheel of Time? Is it like sci-fi or fantasy?
Man. If you've not got the audiobooks, you should get them. It's like 15 books long. Is it 15? The author died like most of the way through, and then like got polished off. It's really good, really good. But if you don't want to read them or listen to them as audiobooks, it's coming out as a TV series on Amazon. And
I'll do the audiobooks.
Big fan. You'll really like them.
How many books
15.
are there? Okay, I want to do Strauss-Kowski's Witcher series as well.
So I want to do the Witcher series. Really interesting. We'll trade. That'll be fun. Or we'll do it at the same time.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we'll do the Witcher one at the same time, then I'll do it all the time.
There was a really good point being made in the chat that I just wanted to bring up here. Is that because 40k is predominantly a shooting game and AOS is predominantly a close combat game? I think 40k has been a combat game since 9th landed, right? Like it feels...
Mainly because you had to have really dense boards, because otherwise everyone dies to shoot.
Yeah, well, yes. So with that in mind, that's the point, I think, because that's going to also be one of the points of the show today. Terrain is going to come up again as we go. It's going to come up. I can't not talk about it, right?
Baby.
But I want to ask a couple of things about the event, like we always do. A classic honest Wargamer review. Tables. How was the table height, Tom?
Table height was good for me.
Okay, and you're quite a tall fella, so that's good.
Yeah.
Second question. This is really it's okay. We're all a cool Wargamer. There's also a joke that I heard on a podcast recently that Melly might be back in 40k. Just a very deep cut joke. Falcons at home being like, "Rob, you sassy bitch," and just fucking. Anyway, what I was going to say was, so tables, yes. Terrain, how was the terrain? Because they had 4 different sets of terrain, right? ITC. It's not called ITN. What the fuck is it called?
So it was like Game Mat EU, WTC, LGT, and GW Open.
Yes, 4 different sets. Did you happen to play on any of the GW Opens or the upcoming LGT?
I played on 1 GW Open, 1 WTC, 2, and then 3 Game Mat EUs.
Okay.
I don't know what was the one that I didn't play on? Fuck. I played on GW, WTC, Game Mat. I didn't play on any LGTs. I didn't play any
I guess
LGTs.
also, I guess also it's a bit silly to ask you how was the terrain when you literally was just running a gun line that ignored terrain.
I mean, it's true. So... I mean, I did experience it. You
were there.
The LGT. I played the GW one, actually caused my opponent a lot of issues because he couldn't see much. It was actually really good at blocking line of sight. Not that I cared. I just kept going.
Interesting.
It was a bit weird having a transparent piece of plastic block line of sight.
Yep.
That felt rather counterintuitive, but it is what it is. It worked quite well. The game mats were fine. The WTC one was really shit. Just because it was against the AdMech, and I didn't have enough to hide because of the way that the ruins are angled. So hopefully we can get that sorted. Not for my sake, because as I say, I'm not taking that list again.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Other pieces, other things. Food. How's food?
I had a KFC, and I didn't eat on the Saturday. I chose not to.
Interesting. What for speed?
Yeah. I mean, I was lazy, to be honest. I went out for a big curry in the evening.
All right, good. Thanks, Bleed Thief, for resubscribing and everyone for joining us live. And final question: how are the hand dryers in the toilets?
I don't recall there being any hand dryers.
Paper towels is the gentleman's choice.
Yes. Yeah, my trousers were very useful.
No, Tom. No. No. Oh, brother, no. We can't advocate for that on the show, please. No one.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm just telling you what happened. Like, it's not the same thing. I'm telling you I took my download list. It doesn't mean I said you should take it, does it?
All right, fine. Trousers. No, none of you in the chat. It's the order. If anyone's interested, we always do this at a venue when we review it. Top of the pile is hand towels, but of course the worst. That's really bad for the environment and the planet. But basically, according to climate scientists, we're fucked anyway, so it doesn't matter. Just fucking speed it up at this point, boys. Let's get it going. Yeah, if we're gonna go 2012, let's fucking speed this bad boy up.
Rob's applied his. We're just gonna make it worse because it's hilarious logic to global warming.
Yeah, from 40k to the climate change. Yeah, and then windmilling through the venue is a new one on me, Owen, but maybe the other, I think,
like John Dimmerman.
Yeah, really low at the pile. Most people don't know this, but Dyson hand dryers, if you don't know, they actually circulate the air in such a way that fecal matter is displaced into the air. So it's actually not considered a positive. So you might be like, we've got the fancy Dyson hand dryers. We're not out about that. And you mean you don't wipe your wet hands on your opponent to assert dominance?
It's a pretty good plan, actually. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe I'll do that in future.
But Tom, you did walk away from the event with a prize.
Yeah. So after I lost to Sean round one, I was gunning for Bloodiest General. Okay. Now, when Mikey announced that prize, I didn't get it, which is very surprised by. But it's okay, because I already had a prize, which was this fabulous... I am my Siege Studios application.
Up a bit higher and more central, where your face is.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Good.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a Siege Studios Artis Opus, sponsored by Artis Opus brush collection, and something I make my brush better on and that.
So Tom, just some people,
I'm sure
some people in the chat might not know Tom's 5 year.
Do you know why I've got this?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on. Why did you get that?
Yeah. So I've got this because I somehow won this fucker, which is a best painted trophy for my army.
Picture.
I'm
not sure it's a trophy.
Yeah. It's a picture of the best painted army, which is mine.
Okay.
From the Into the Hellstorm 5 the Chainsword event. I had no idea how the fuck I got nominated for best painted. I was even more surprised when I won the thing. When I got announced, my first emotion was guilt at how the fuck I won this. Because there were some really good armies up. Dick had his army, which was lovely basing. Really nice. There was a really nice converted AOS Iron Warriors army that was up there as well, with some beach bases that I've been trying to work on since 2013. Never made it. And I voted for that. I thought it was really, really good. And then Mikey calls me up, and I'm like, my mates have fucked this.
Was it a vote? Was it a vote? A vote system?
It was a public vote. Yeah. I was like,
perfect.
So I'm just like,
some people might not. Can I just quickly regale people? Tom's 4-year redemption arc as a hobbyist has been finally culminated. When Tom first joined the show, or when not even joined the show, when we started the show together, me, Tom, and Nick, Tom was of the opinion that shake and bakes, which is where you put your models in a Ziploc bag with Agrax Earthshade and shake it, was the dominant way to paint. He also went through the crystal met gun phase. Some of you might not know this, where he built his own met guns out of crystals. Some people think that conversions and kit bashing is actually kind of like the gentleman's choice. It's not, and these weren't. They were horrific.
I did try.
That's embarrassing that you admit that you tried. Yeah, that's right. But then Tom,
it's a good representation of my hobby.
Yeah,
okay? It's fine. But that was after Blood and Glory.
McCypher in the chat says, "I saw those crystals guns in person. Crystal Mech is modern blight." I agree. And then Tom's redemption arc started, having won Blood and Glory, which is a 40k event here, in the Midlands. Yeah. Thanks, Trendy Love, for resubscribing. By getting a couple of extra points for his hobby score, thus.
Now, in my defense of that one, in the last round, the other person who was on max wins, his opponent conceded before the game even started because he was ill.
All right.
So I call that a moral victory. Thank you.
Okay, fair.
I actually won something.
But before we get into the main subject, I just want to ask one last quick question, because I'm actually using it at the event this weekend, and I kind of want to get your feedback on it. Did you... is this the Honest Wargamer Painting Masterclass stream? Coming soon. Tom, because it was just win, loss, draw, and then battle points, right?
Yeah, and it was battle point difference.
Was it battle points and then battle point difference, or was it win, loss, draw, battle point difference?
Win, loss, draw, then battle point difference. I think. I don't know. I don't know what you mean. I'm trying to work out.
So variance. So when you go to a team event and it's 20-0. The second?
But it wasn't like a 20-0. It was like this event, it was based on win, loss, draw, and then within the brackets of how many wins and losses, they would sort it by VP difference.
By VP difference, but not by. But VP difference, I think, is effectively the same as 20-0, right?
Kind of, but except it doesn't have a cap on it, right?
Yeah.
And also, winning by 51 points is the same as winning by 54 points in win, loss, draw, right?
Yeah.
I just want to address the public vote stuff in the chat. It wasn't a full public vote, so there was 6 armies nominated, and then everyone voted amongst those 6 armies.
Hey.
So it wasn't just I was out there bribing people and getting votes.
I was on the blower messaging people. I was like, vote for him.
I think the opposite. I was saying everyone should vote for the other army, so it was fine. But whatever.
Well, congratulations to you, Tom. Okay. You're the hobbyist of the show now.
Yeah,
especially with Nick leaving. You're the hobbyist.
Yeah, mate, I'm washed up boomer, so I have to transition to just painting little miniatures in my granddad shed, and we'll have to get some young up and coming 40k player on the show now.
We'll have to do whatever the hell happened to Chapter Tactics. We'll do that. We'll get them kids in. They can do this as well. Right, okay, so sounds like a fun event. Final bit before we leave. Robbo, who took out the event, right?
Yes, yeah.
What's the situation? Is he on a 30 game win streak at events?
No. He's on a 51 game win streak now at events, and he's just breached 40 wins on the bounce competitively with his sisters.
Okay, that's pretty impressive, though, right?
Yeah, he stopped caring ever since he beat Mike Porter's record. So.
Okay, all right, perfect.
He's sorted now. He's done for life.
I haven't met Mike Porter. What a treasure! What a treasure he is.
Yeah. He's
really good. All right. Well done, Tom. Your next event is this Saturday at the TSN Arena. So that's our 40k event.
Yeah.
Are you taking?
We'll talk about those.
We'll talk about those later. We'll talk about the main subject of the show today. So I've done the research, and Tom's here as Tom's going to do some.
I'm just here.
Tom's going to do some feedback on it. So last week was quite interesting. I don't know at what point this happened last week. I kind of forgot because it's been a bit hectic. But there were 2 articles that came out at the same time. And some people might be like, this seems a bit irrelevant. But I think it actually has a fairly big impact. And those 2 articles were the Metawatch article from Games Workshop, specifically, as you guys can see here. And then it was, Metawatch, 5 things we learned about Warhammer 40,000 from the Orlando Open. And then... and then the monthly Goonhammer 40k meta review. And if you guys haven't checked out Goonhammer for some insane reason, you should go check them out. Those guys are brilliant, and they do really quality work in a bunch of different ways for a bunch of different game systems.
Oh, we have got the Metawatch article as well.
And they've got the Metawatch article as well, right? Yeah. which you could go check out. Now, both of these two things are really important, in my opinion, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because they both paint different-ish pictures. I wouldn't say like chalk and cheese. They're not like 1-0 different pictures, but they paint enough of it.
Although sometimes that's a sample size.
Yeah, sometimes that's the sample size. The main point that I kind of want to talk about is like the health of the conversation around the game, and how like one group I think is doing really stellar work in trying to have competent conversations, and another group isn't, in my opinion. But I'm going to kind of like try and like not like lead the conversation too much, although I think I probably already did, and instead just kind of I think I definitely did there.
That's good though. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's
like,
fine.
but instead just kind of talk about what I think that they were both trying to achieve, and also what they put inside those articles, because I think that is one of those like kind of like interesting things. So the two different articles are, we've had some Metawatch articles before. There was a particularly good one done by Falcon and Val. If you guys want to like go back and read that one. I didn't particularly rate any of the other ones. Having read every single one, I didn't think that there was much of value in any of the others, but it seems to be something Games Workshop put out intermittently without any particular forethought, in my opinion. Whereas what I think is really relevant for the Goonhammer article is it's a monthly article that they do consistently, and it's like really well structured and really well put together. But they both achieve very different things, and there's just some big inconsistencies, and I'm not really sure like what to take away from those, and I'd like to know what you think, Tom, basically, and the chat.
No, it's fine. So I think it's first important to distinguish what these articles actually tell you, right? When I read these articles, I don't read them as an instruction guide on how I should play the game. You read it more as an overview of how people are playing the game, and that's not the same thing. I don't care like what the average player is doing. I care what the best thing to do is.
Well, yeah, and
right?
there is actually even some interesting stuff in that inside the meta review as well from Goonhammer, like especially when talking about
sure. But when you're taking like huge sample sizes, you're taking a wide variety of player abilities, and you're taking a wide variety of practice games. For example, I used the ITC Battles app yesterday because I was playing a game with my mate, and we were just pissing around with some big chaos toys.
Okay.
But that data has gone directly into this, right?
Well, no, because there's actually two sets of data that they use, right? And they actually even compare those two sets of data together. So, for example, one set of data comes from ITC Battles app, which, as you're talking about, is some data driven from there. The other one is actually from like BCP tournament results. So, like, but you know, there's still just a bunch of fucking me's that can turn up to a 40k event and just like rubbish numbers around.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, like I don't take my cues on how I should play the game based on like mid tables, although apparently maybe I should. Based on
I think with a 3-3 and a hobby prize, you fucking should, mate.
I should. I'm fucking washed. It's fine. So what it's telling me effectively is what the state of the game is.
Well,
it's not telling me how I should play.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of give you some highlights, and then we can kind of talk around it and maybe the effect of it.
Yeah.
So first thing that they did was they broke down the overall meta in both win rates and representation. So we'll go and look at that in a moment. I think that's really interesting. Then they broke down.
So we're doing Goonhammer first, sorry.
Yeah, we'll do Goonhammer first. Yeah. Then they broke down the three newest and best performing books. Yeah. Like, and the real question is I wrote myself a question. What was Goonhammer trying to achieve with the article? Yeah. And I think it was nothing other than represent facts and then put some opinion on top of it, which I actually think was nice. I think.
Oh, this is
we'll come back to it. So there was a breakdown of the three newest performing books, which I thought were really excellent. Then a breakdown of the secondaries, which I thought was really fucking good. And then they showed the faction secondaries as superior to core secondaries. We'll get around to that in a minute. And then they talked about the Orlando terrain, which is really where there's a big disparity between them and the Metawatch article from Games Workshop specifically.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that's the thing. And then so we'll talk about those as we look through now, right? Because I think there's some really interesting stuff to take away. And this was the faction win rates and Glico scores. I had to actually go and fucking read what a Glico score was. Effectively, it's the ELO.
So,
it's the ELO for a faction, Tom.
Good. So firstly, I love ELO. Secondly, Goonhammer guys, I can see you in the chat. When I read this graph, I can't tell which bar belongs to which thing at the bottom without meticulously zooming in. So what I have to do is I take this and I stick it on my monitor so I can see which thing is relating to which thing. Can we put some like little dotted lines on your graphs, please, so I don't have
Yeah,
to do this
like
shit?
there's definitely
That'd be really good.
one hundred
Thank you.
percent like
That's some
yeah, there's
feedback.
definitely someone who can do some infographics for you that will
Mhm.
shape this up. Graph department isn't in the chat. Fucking get them.
Well, clip it and ship it. Clip it and ship it and send it to the graphics department. I need to. I can't read
Uh,
this. Like,
anyway,
like Space Wolves. I think that's a slight red bar, but I can't
well,
quite
it's all
tell.
right, Tom. I got it in big for
Yeah.
everyone. Right.
Oh, good,
So,
good.
like, and there's some. Oh, no, I'll make it a bit smaller. Oh no, too small. Right. There's some interesting stuff to take away from here. One of the things that I took away from was from this particular article was, let me just go find my notes. How many of the armies were like doing well or weren't doing well. Specifically, there are 12 in the green. Yeah, here. There are 22 in the red. If you're talking about armies. So you don't like, and I know that's really rough in a guide. Sorry, in an article that's full of detail and information. But 12 good, or 12 green, effectively, and 22 red. Paints, in my opinion, a fairly like stark-ish picture. Specifically, also, if you look at just like the dominance of Drukhari and Mechanicus there, like there is 3 sisters, which is why I think that they probably did a breakdown of those 3 sisters, Mechanicum and Drukhari, and then they pretty much reign over the rest of those are the 3 on the left-hand side, and they.
I'm interested to see what orcs are going to do to this. By the way,
Yeah,
I think orcs cause some serious
yeah,
problems.
long term, but like right now, this is where we're at, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so fascinating because effectively what it's saying is there are 3 dominant armies, and then there are 22 that are like not doing great, and some of that are giga fucked. Giga fucked would be Heretic Astartes, Tau Empire, Astra Militarum, Imperial Fist, and Gene Stealer Cults are generally giga fucked.
I mean, if we scroll down to the into the win rate by faction
Yeah.
graph, so if you look at the BCP stats,
Yeah.
there's actually quite a few factions on 50+% win rate. So you've got Drukhari, Admex, Sisters, Grey Knights.
Well, but the
Custodes
problem
have
is, Tom,
50%,
is what
exactly.
you're taking in there is the thing that you said you weren't too keen on, which was the ITC Battles app data on the left.
No, I'm taking on the one on the right.
Yeah. Well, so
The BCP.
so actually, I think that like there's so in the 50s, Harlequins, Demons, Dark Angels,
Yeah.
Death Guard, Grey Knights, Mechanicus, Sororitas, and Drukhari, pretty dominant up there.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I bring that up is because it isn't just a case of there being 3 factions of and everyone else just getting like ruined by them repeatedly. Because you've got a lot of factions that are still in the middle, but you've also got a couple of factions, like 3 or 4, that are giga fucked.
Yeah.
Like the Tau. Oh, well, crap, all that, I have a 41% win rate. Mate, I'm 9% up. Nice.
You got it, Tom. You're smashing it. 3-3
I got it,
3-3
I
with
got
the
it.
Eldar. You got it, baby. But I think the point that they make by this, and we have skipped one because it's super worth looking at in a moment. We'll go back to that in a
100%.
minute.
Although I need to find out.
Yeah,
what
is how much it seems like the ones at the top push everyone else down, right? I think that's one of those key pieces.
On that graph,
yeah.
yes.
And effectively, it's saying that there is an issue with 3 of the armies, and we already knew there was a Drukhari and Mechanicus issue, and the Sororitas was. But like the one that I think is fucking unbelievable is if you go back to the Glico score one, yeah, and that effectively is so it's an ELO system. Like I had to
This the wiggly
line
one, yeah.
one, and you guys can see it on the screen. So at the top. Yeah. So basically, your faction goes higher.
That's so stupid.
Right. Your faction goes higher up this chart.
I don't know what it means, but I can tell.
Yeah.
It's
Your faction gets a higher score basically if it beats other dominant. Like so, if you beat someone that's not very good, Tau, for example, you don't go up particularly high. But if you beat the other dominant builds, you go up higher. And look where Drukhari sit in that particular one. Right. It's fucking wild.
It looks like you've drawn a painting. So at the bottom, you've got this blue and green line. Here, that's the sea. And then underneath this yellow line, you've got the beach. And the Drukhari is literally the sky.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. And as you can see, Adeptus Mechanicus are actually getting higher and higher as well. And Drukhari are coming down. Right? And then...
Just on the AdMech point, very quickly. I don't think AdMech are a problem because I think their win rate is super high. I think AdMech are a problem because they're super uninteractive in how they play the game, and their win rate is pretty good. It's just impossible to play alongside it. Like you feel like you're not participating in the game.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point. Fair point. Yeah. I think what this does is this just gives you some raw data, which is really like observable, and then
Yeah,
those
yeah,
feelings that you get for turning
yeah,
up and playing is like is a different world,
yeah.
right? Um.
I just don't want to see like people say, "Oh, look, AdMech are fine," because they're like pretty much with the pack in terms of like Glicko score. When realistically, that's not really the case, and secondly, it's not the main issue of the book.
No, and they're going up as well. That's the kind of point. Like,
Yes,
so anyway, yeah, like I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that some of these books just don't interact at all. I think probably the Drukhari doesn't really interact either, if you're 100% honest, because it just like smokes you. But like effectively, they're saying there are 3 codexes that are major issues, with one. A hefty issue, right? This is really key. And what I love about this breakdown from the guys is just how excellent it is, because it really creates a conversation. They're like, look, these are dominant. This is how they're dominant in a particular way. And then these are like some like raw. In fact, I care so little about this win rate by faction stat now, like versus the other stuff above. I thought that was really excellent.
Yep.
And then they talked about
100%, mate. When you give me an elo score, I'm just like fuck everything else. I just look at the elo.
That was
great.
really good. And then it's got the faction concentration by date, and effectively how many. So it's basically the meta. How many of each army are you seeing? And like Death Guard are pretty dominant. I don't really understand this graph. Like, if I'm honest,
I don't either. I'll have to
it just looks like a wave. I just know that the big green Death Guard in the middle is green. I'm not a mathematist.
I just saw the graph underneath it, mate, with the fucking highlighting points of the codex release.
You what? Where?
So there's a graph right underneath this one that you're looking at right now called faction share of all wins and losses. And there's a green line for Drukhari wins and a red line for Drukhari losses. And you could see the exact point where Drukhari.
Yeah, we'll go back to that in a minute. I actually, one of my favorite. My only criticism is, and again, this probably makes more sense if you understand math or like science or whatever. But I don't get this particular graph. But I would like to see more of this. But I think what it's saying, and I can see Goonhammer Corrode in the chat. So Death Guard get a much bigger share of games played, so their wave gets bigger. Okay, so it's a bigger wave, basically, is what we're seeing, Tom. But like, I just would like to see some numbers, basically. But maybe they're not actually that relevant.
Liam, do you do the graphs?
Yeah, it's ace. Left to right.
I need to know if you could put dots.
Hold on,
we're
getting some feedback. It's ace. Left to right is time. Okay, got that. Right, and then thickness is how many players are in that army. It's all about the girth, Tom.
So what you're telling me is that everyone's playing Death Guard. Is this a point where everyone realised Volkite Contemptor Dreadnoughts were good?
Yes. Also, a lot of people are.
is this big
I think also a lot of people are playing Adeptus. Really, I think it goes up, right? The most loads of people are playing Adeptus Custodes. I think that's how it works. I'm not sure, man. If I'm honest, yes. Right, they're cheap to build, and lots of people have them from 8th. Oh yeah, the reason as to why, but I just like that's meta representation is always one of my favorite stats. Having done it for the Age of Sigmar stuff, generally, but that's by the by because that's not really important right now. I mean, it is, but it's not. Right, so then they break down these 3 different factions, and Tom, you like this one.
Oh,
this
here
is
we go.
This is the Drukhari one.
Oh, scroll down. Ready? 3. Oh, look at it. There it is. Oh, lovely
So
stuff.
the big uptick.
You don't even need to circle the codex release bit. You can just see it on the graph. What the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah, so the big green line.
The fact that this now looks normal on the right-hand side is like the scary bit.
What? When it gets onto the side, it looks fine, but it's still not fine.
Yeah. For like the last quarter of the graph, it looks like compared to the previous bit, like it's okay now. It's like no, it's still not. But
anyway,
but this is just so monstrous. It looks better in context.
It's horrific. It's horrific. Look at the straight uptick. It's wild, right? So there's the initial codex release, and there's it, and what's nice is the tracking of the FAQ nerf. So the initial codex FAQ, then the FAQ with nerfs. You saw a big drop down. Then you saw some people bring that back up, which I think is interesting. I would have maybe liked to have seen that coincide with the release of Mechanicus as well. I don't know if that that final dip was like a Mechanicus dip or not. But like they do that in the next one, and then look at the page from 40kstats.com. You can go check Pete's site out, which is great.
Baby,
look at August. Look at fucking August.
And this wasn't even the peak; it's just that everyone's built their army.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Also, I couldn't get Hellions until like July, so This is where the factory's reopened
Uh,
or whatever
yeah,
it is. I
yeah,
don't
when
know.
they
I can
they
fucking buy
re-released
shit.
them. But anyway, so they're dominant, effectively, is what they're saying. And this isn't kind of the main point of the show, but I thought it was worth going through this and just talking. They even make a really nice suggestion here of what they would see, what they would do to potentially change. But actually, interestingly, and again, because it's so well constructed, and I really do think this. I'm not trying to blow smoke up their arse. I just think it was a great
No, of
read.
course, yeah.
I walked away from this being like I feel like much wiser having read it.
So when we do the LGT, I'm going to make sure I've like properly understood all of this, so I can bring up data points on the broadcast because I think that could be really
Really
cool.
cool. Yeah, we'll talk. I'm actually doing some
Really cool.
assets, Tom, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, but
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Right, but and then even Wings here makes a suggestion of what like he would change in game, which I think is cute. So I love
Yeah,
that.
that's fine.
Then they talk about
Yeah, whatever.
Mechanicus, same thing. Codex release, big spike. Then the FAQs and nerfs and how they drop that down. Which I think is quite interesting. I still think, you and me talked about this already, I still think there's a production meta issue on Mechanicus, sorry.
Yeah.
That's
And not even just like producing your army, it's about them producing the kits so you can produce your army.
100%. Yeah, like so, like effectively, what I'm saying is that maybe there would be more wins. A lot, like there were loads of raiders ready for Drukhari players when Drukhari came out, right? There wasn't necessarily
Oh
Skitari
yeah,
hordes
yeah.
available.
You could just cut bits off your Ravagers and you'd be
Huh?
fine. You could just cut bits off your Ravagers and you'd be
Yeah,
fine.
100%. So I think there's still a production meta issue on this, but they don't. I don't know if they mentioned that in here. Maybe they do, but I think you might actually see that get higher.
Control
Not that I
F
know enough about 40k to actually
production.
fucking make that
No,
statement, but I
it's not
think
there.
maybe. And then they talk about the Sisters of Battle and the fact that they're doing quite nicely. But then they brought up this really
Yep.
fucking lovely bit of information, which I thought was just fucking excellent, right? Which was that if you actually look at who Sisters of Battle play well into. They do really well into a load of
Yeah.
armies, but they
Blood Interest
fucking
Archangel.
suck
Yep.
into Drukhari and Mechanicus. So they don't like. That's where they do great until they hit the two meta armies, and then they lose more than they win.
I think they struggle into Mechanicus. Sisters are one of those factions where skill is actually a big factor, right?
You think?
Like, and
Go
I've
on after you. You say some more.
in Sisters, I think the average playing Sisters is not the same as the average player playing Adbag. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So I think actually Sisters can do okay into Drukhari, depending upon build. I also think a lot of people are getting a couple of mistakes into their builds right now. Specifically, people still aren't sure on the number of sacrosands that you take, and people aren't sure about Zephyrim and how aggressive you go with those things.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So like why this is really important. This is all like real prefix before we talk about like the two conversations when we talk about terrain later, is what I find amazing about this is you're talking about army composition versus army composition or just general army performance as it goes on earlier on in the article. I think all really well put together, right? And the next section is fucking amazing. The next section's really great, but where it informs, Tom, into how does you're like Sisters, I think you think can do better into Mechanicus than maybe they're given credit for in the numbers.
Into Drukhari.
Oh, into Drukhari specifically. Sorry. Like, but the thing I was going to say is you don't know how relevant that is based on a variety of different board states, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Like when we talk about this later, because everything that's coming out of the Goonhammer article is conscientious effort to understand what's happening. Everything that's going to come out of the Metawatch article is intentionally obfuscating information so that we don't understand. Like, we have this war at the heart of a game that we all love. And this is a conversation about something that we all love. Yeah? That's really important that we all love it. In that there's a group trying very hard to disseminate information and come up with some like ideas as to why.
100%.
And then there's another group.
I've expanded this as well. Every article has like I haven't seen these Glico scores before. These are really cool. I like
They've
them.
done them for a while, but like, it's great. It's great stuff.
Oh,
yeah. And this is what we're going to inform in the heart, and I want to talk about it at the end because that's kind of the big conversation piece. I want to know what everyone thinks and what everyone feels. So then they talk about orcs. There's not enough information. This next bit is incredible. So this is the secondary objectives. Yeah, coming out from 2021 GT mission packs. And Tom, I know you love the rod. Yep. Yeah. Right.
I actually do love that. I actually like Rod.
Right. The point is they also so they talk about the number of times it's been picked, which I think is really fascinating. You see that Engage on all fronts is the most popular, obviously, because it's fucking not even playing, and then Rod is 13,000 as well, so that's pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And then the best bit that they do is they talk about how many VPs you get. How many VPs you get per one. And the highest is 8.9. Yeah, I'll just double check that. The highest is...
It'd be good if they could do different tables for the different categories. For example, if you had the category of engagement on front, stranglehold, what have you, in one section, then you had razor banners, rod in another section, and then you could actually check compared to the ones that you're picking against.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That could be good.
Yeah, that would be great. Information gathering is always fascinating. But they talk about like basically your average VP, and as you can see, the average is 8. So if you choose core secondaries, your average is going to be you're going to get 8 VP for each one of those, right? Which is interesting. And then just kind of like to blow the lead on it, if you go for your faction secondary, the average, especially for the dominant armies, is around, not the average, sorry, but the dominant armies, they rock a 10, basically. So if you have a good secondary in a good army, you effectively are going to be getting 2 more points for your secondary versus the core secondaries that are available, if that makes sense.
Okay, so here's a question.
I won't be able to answer it, but sure.
Are they getting their secondaries because they're good factions and therefore they give themselves more board space that allows them to get the secondaries?
Great question.
Or are they good secondaries making their codex good?
Yeah, like that's kind of like that's the kind of
question,
like it's. I'm sure all of it informs all of it, right? Like I think the fact that you can get 2 extra VP, like playing a better army. It also means that like even if you're not playing differential, you know, you've got a potential chance to score more, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And
so I think it's kind of half of one, half the other, because I'm looking at this list and I'm looking at there's 2 Dark Angel secondaries in the top 4, right? But I actually really don't rate Dark Angels as a book. What's the win rate on Dark Angels?
Oh, let's go.
Let's have a scroll. All the way back up here.
Jesus.
Okay, Dark Angels 51, 53%. Yeah. But they have 2 of the best secondaries in the game.
Yeah, but this is the point.
It's a really good secondary.
Yeah, this is the point. Yeah, the secondaries bringing them up. The secondaries are bringing them up, and they do talk about that like later on. But I think that's a fascinating breakdown, because actually you start to understand where the power of the new books is not only the new books have got stronger armies as they are, they also have secondaries that are more achievable, like, and you get more victory points effectively.
Yeah,
lovely breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to throw something out there before we forget about it, because it's spicy and I want to drop it. I thought this for about a month now. I think the Dark Angels are the Space Marines equivalent of looters.
Is that just because Scrivo's in the chat and you want to trigger him? Is that what's going on?
No, I genuinely think they're a trap. I don't think they have enough presence.
Okay, you don't think they have enough presence?
And I think there are better options. I think there are better options in the spawn form of Space Wolves and White Scars and Death Watch.
I mean, White Scars are already doing really well, right?
Yeah, true.
So I'm not surprised by that. I understand that. Yeah. Okay, fine. And screw you, Scrivo, in the chat. Fuck off.
Well, Scrivo wins the event this weekend. I'll make it all more impressive because he's done it with a crap book.
So the point is, let's talk about this. From the Goonhammer article, what have they attempted to achieve? Right, is they've made us understand, that there are some dominant books. They've made us understand how dominant they are. That's really important. Yeah. What they've done is they've done a breakdown of how we potentially score and achieve more with those books because of secondaries, and also maybe what's pushing them down, like with Sisters. Well done, boys. Really well put together. And then they go and talk about the go first win rates and the Orlando terrain. And this is really important. So we'll read these now, and then we'll hit off. The important point here is that in GT events post the January 2021 change, which was talking about the go first win rate, and was when we saw the change, because of the go first win rate conversation occurring before that particular FAQ, what we saw was a change to you have to go first if you win the turn to go first, and also you can score at the end of turn 5, right, as opposed to at the beginning of turn 5. Those are the specific changes. And as you can see, it went from a pre-January FAQ of 55% down to 53.4%, right? So you still have a 3.5% better chance of winning if you go first, but it's better than it was previously, right? Okay, cool, right? So we're aware of that, right?
I still think there's still a heavy press. I don't think the issue is necessarily like, whoever goes first wins. I think it's the priority on that role. Right, like how much that role impacts it. Because let's say we took the game and we had exactly the same problem, only it would happen if the person who was going second, right? It would still be a problem. It's exactly the same. The issue isn't, it's first turn is the issue. The issue is this priority on a roll you can't control, that's just a roll off, is not conducive to an interactive game. Like when Robbo and Manny were playing the final round of Hellstorm this weekend, I was talking through a matchup with Robbo, and we came to the conclusion before the game even started that whoever goes second is going to have massive advantage. And then we got to the end of the game, Robbo had won, and they concluded that the reason why he won was because he went second.
Right, okay. And without a choice.
Yeah, but it doesn't even necessarily matter about the choice, although it does matter a little bit because obviously you can make a mistake there. But at the same time, it's just that one roll just dictates the entire game.
So, which is why, because this is very important, right? Which is why the conversation about how much it affects the game is so important. This is what you're getting from this information, yeah?
Yes.
And why the conversation we're going to have in the Metawatch article in a moment is so disingenuous, because it has such a huge impact on how we enjoy all of our games. Yeah, that's really, really important. That the conversation is really, really relevant, because when you produce the data, you get a good chat. You're like, okay, cool, what can we do? And we've seen them make strides. And again, congratulations to Games Workshop on making strides to try to change it around, specifically scoring at the end of the turn on turn 5. That was a positive change. Thanks, Grody, for resubscribing. Big love to you. Anyway, so this is the important point. 53.4% was what the go first win rate was going into the Orlando GT, right? That's the important point, right? So the go first, about 54%. And then at the Orlando GT, the player of the first turn, I think this is where it is, the player with the first turn went on to win 53.2% of the time. So look at where it is, 53.4%. That's all the global stats put together. At the Orlando GT, 53.2. So that,
and then they claim it's because of the terrain.
A 0.2 difference. Correct. We'll go and talk about that now, because that's with a variety of different like terrain sets and other stuff around the world. So let's go to the Games Workshop article, shall we? 5 things we learned.
I'll get the link in the chat.
Terrain levels off the go first win rate. So
I mean, technically, by not putting. Okay.
Technically.
So, I feel like my issue with this is that it implies that no one else is using it, using terrain, which obviously is false.
Incredibly false.
Everyone's using terrain. It's just that. Yeah. But
it's insulting. It's insulting to the community that before they ever came out with their terrain pack, you had multiple different people.
Yeah.
You had the ITC guys, so FLGN. You had the WTC guys. You had a bunch of different people producing terrain sets. Ishik doing some really solid early work when a lot of us were just doing TTS. Designing terrain packs. I built my terrain for my venue and painted it based off mainly like ITC style, not ITC, not that, WTC style terrain packs. So it's quite dense. So when people turn up, they're like, "What's a lot of terrain?" So like one of those conversations that's occurring is what terrain can we use to be effective in the game? Anyway, so
here's a very quick issue with this before we get into the meat of the actual thing, right? I think it's a little bit amusing of them to say, "Oh, well, we've got such great terrain." When I'm looking at the pictures you just put on that quote of you saying that the terrain fixed the first turn problem, and it literally looks like half the amount of terrain that was meant to be on those perspex squares is on the base. When you look at the actual pictures they put on the GW Warhammer community website of the terrain concept, it was a full box. Now this is half a box pulled halfway into the middle of the perspex terrain.
Yeah, but the perspex terrain,
it's almost like it's an icon.
The perspex terrain, it's effectively flat terrain, right? Like the perspex represents like a whole box.
True, but you still have line of sight though, right? Like they haven't even but it's the reason why it represents the whole box is because they haven't put enough terrain on it.
Agreed. Yeah, I think poor, but like it costs them.
They've run out of actual ruins. Yeah. Also, they've lied about the 50%.
Well, yeah, let's go through that, right? That's the point, right? So there's much conversation. So I'll read it out. There's much conversation around the advantage conferred by having the first turn in Warhammer 40,000. It's a common phenomenon in turn-based games. Thanks for that. The go first win rate in Warhammer 40,000 is reckoned to be around 57 to 58%. It's
not true.
53.4 is what it is. 53.4.
I mean, I've lied. They were too lazy to go and find the stat.
Probably the too lazy. They thought flamers were damaged too. So that's true. So like we could maybe forgive them for that. But this is due to several factors. Most prominently, the threat of powerful alpha strike from the first player. Is it? Which distorts the way armies are built. I'm not sure that's true. Anyway. The event team at the US Open Orlando focused on battlefields to mitigate the effects of alpha strikes, making sure they're still visually appealing and fun to fight over. Their efforts bore fruit from one event with an average go-first win rate of just 52%. Yeah? Now that's not true. It was 53.2%.
It's, in fact, they correct themselves later on in their own
Do
article.
they?
Well, where else did you get the stat from?
Huh?
Where else do you get the win percentage stat from?
Yeah, where they must have got the stats from either Goonhammer or Falcon or BCP anyway to try to generate this information themselves, right?
Wait, so where did you get the 53.2% win rate at the Orlando Open on first?
Oh, from the Goonhammer guys. So it's
so the data from a GW
is a lie.
They didn't even get their own data. They just guessed.
Yeah, it's a lie.
And there's no from a field of like 200 people. Just guess.
Right. So that's not true, basically.
Okay. Fine.
Right.
Fine.
And this is really important because and this is super key for the first piece. Yeah. Like the first thing they said was terrains level off the first go win rate, and that is untrue. And this is really.
I mean, to be fair, Rob, if you had a naked board, I think it would make the first turn really bad.
That's true.
No, their specific terrain.
That's true. That's true.
We need to be very careful about how we word this because terrain does indeed level up the first turn.
It does.
A bit, okay?
Terrain does. But their terrain's
just the existence of some terrain is helpful.
Their terrain doesn't. And actually, there's even more information when we go back to the Goonhammer article.
It doesn't do it more significantly than other board layouts. Yes. I agree.
Yeah. Does it make any difference? And actually, the opposite is true. We're going to go back to that information in a moment. Yeah. And this is what's really bad and unhealthy for the community. And I don't understand. This isn't meant to be me ragging on Games Workshop. It's meant to be like an open love letter. Why do you feel the need to lie to us as a community when you could just present the information and we would all try to make it so we could understand how to do it better? Like, do we need...
Did you see the Upon Wings of Fire drama as well?
Yeah, I did, but we'll gloss over that.
Okay,
yeah, but like
the fact they couldn't even read the strategy we were putting in the own article.
But it's just some intern
before
dude.
putting it out
It's
there
just,
and throwing this kind
it's
of
just some guy who does social, like he's got a social media degree.
Saying he's just an intern doesn't excuse him from just like Googling Warhammer 40k win rates. Like, if I Google Warhammer 40k win rates, the first article that comes up is 40k stats. The second one is Goonhammer.
Yeah.
Just click either of those links and it tells you the number. You spent more effort making up the number than you would have done.
I'm with you. Listen, I'm with you.
Number.
It's important to know that I'm with you, right? So
being an intern doesn't change that, mate. Like, fucking hell.
My point is that what is really bad about this, in my opinion, is they are creating a false narrative about how we develop terrain because, and this is one of the things that's really terrible if we go back to it, is if you actually look, Tom, if you go back to the Goonhammer article, because we kind of haven't talked about this, the Games Workshop Orlando Major, actually had a lower go first win rate in the first few rounds. But as you got later on into the series, rounds 5 to 8, the terrain, if it's the terrain, and the go first win rate is higher than the average. So 54% is your average, right? But then in round 5 it was 60%. In round 6 it was 59%. In round 7 57%, and in round 8 61%. So what the terrain layout has actually done has made it, when you get into later games, the first turn win rate is more impactful, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do.
Now, I would be interested to see what the exact missions were, because of those 8 missions, when I look at those win rates, I would suspect that mission 2 is vital intelligence, and mission 1 or 3 is overrun.
Oh, so it doesn't have that here.
Yeah,
right.
If we knew, that would add a lot of context, because I think in things like vital intelligence, going second is a massive advantage.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that there aren't missions where that also is going to change.
But also, does that weigh down the win rate though? Because if you've got a couple of missions where going second is a massive advantage, it diminishes the effect of the other missions where going first is the advantage by a considerable amount.
You've got it, 100%. And actually, if you look, it's actually from rounds 4. So of our 8 rounds, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are above the statistical average. So going back to the Metawatch article where it says the terrain leveled it out, that's just
Yeah.
categorically untrue. In fact,
So
the effect it's
I also
had.
need to make a point as well
Go on.
after you've done this.
The effect it's
No, it's fine.
had.
So
The
basically,
terrain has made it worse,
yeah.
not better.
So in these examples, you've got 8 missions, right? It doesn't matter about first turn, as we've already established. It matters about the impact of the roll. In only 2 of these missions, round 1 and round 3, is there a less than 5% variance on it.
Yeah.
So either there's a 58% win rate on going second plus, or a 57% win rate plus win rate on going first. Right?
Yep.
In 2 missions, there is a 4% swing from 50 to 46, so an 8% difference, and a 4% in round 1. Everything else, there's a massive swing between first and second turn.
Yeah. Big swing. So it's like the train isn't true. And Wolf Wargaming is just correcting me on some of the information. Apparently, actually, that's a common trend in all events, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah. But what this demonstrates is that there is far too much reliance upon who wins that roll, regardless of whether you want first or second.
Yeah. But what the Games Workshop article is trying to tell you is that that's not true and that they've solved the problem. So just for everyone at home, that's a lie that they've generated, and it seems a bit mean to create such a lie, right? Like, I don't understand the purpose of it. I guess it's to save face, but it's just an odd flex. Like, it's a weird vibe. Like, you kind of think the people who make the decisions are not people you want to go to the pub with. You kind of like, they're going to make stuff up. Like, it's a weird flex. Like, yeah, I banged 3 supermodels last night. And you're like, all right, Pete, like, fair play. Like, good thumb. He's like, yeah, you know. You just don't want to hear it. It's a weird vibe, is what I'm going to say. Anyway. So so Tom, are you comfortable with the fact that the differences between the two is that the Games Workshop article is for some reason trying to lie about the first go win rate?
Yeah, I don't get why. Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
Although not as weird as when they say all the factions are viable and then cite a one Genestealer Cup player with a 33% win rate as the evidence for that.
Yeah, it's an odd take. now the next point from Games Workshop and what they learned from the Orlando Open, is you don't need a meta army to compete, right? So that's the first one. And then they showed the 1st to 16th place with a variety of different armies in there. Like Drukhari stand out in there 4 times, by the way, just to point that out. And it's won by Mechanicus, and Mechanicus are also in there as well, as are the Sisters of Battle. In fact, actually, if we look at it, of the 3 meta armies which have been picked out by Goonhammer in Drukhari, and obviously also Pete in the Stats Center, Drukhari feature 4 times, Mechanicus 2, and Sister Battle 1.
If you include that Eldari mix, which I know has Drukhari in it, half of the top 16 have one of those 3 factions in.
Is effectively what I'm saying. Yeah, right? Yeah. So that's, like, off that alone is not true. But then when you skip past the Blood Angels and the little faux pas they made earlier, and made someone like almost get a kick in, did they not show anything else? There is a win rate thing that they do later. I just want to go find it. It's here. So that's not true. It was won by a meta army. That's really important. So Siegler won it with Mechanicus, which is a meta army. John Lennon came in second with a meta army. It's the Blood Angels aren't necessarily a meta army, but so anyway. And then
I can't wait until next week when Richard is now the greatest player of all time. He won the last one.
Leave it alone. I'm still excited for when the Art of War break into the 2 teams so they can fight each other forever, and then Val and Pete have to talk about that for the rest of time.
I think we should play the Aussie boys and make them fight each other and have an in-house Art
I just want that. I just want the American meta to just be those 2 fighting each other forever. Those 2 teams. Yeah, that's it.
And Nick's just there, just doing his thing, and just having a great time. Like,
Nick's the guy from UFC. Well, who's the guy from UFC holding off the 2 fighters?
Not Joe Rogan.
No, not him. The guy who runs UFC, but he's in the middle, like one side pushing.
Oh, Dana White.
Yeah, Siegler on one side, Lennon on the other. He's like, no, boys, not yet. Anyway, so then the point is, older codexes still work, okay? And then they put this horrific win percentage graph in, which is just disingenuous on a bunch of different ways, right? Like,
I think the number of ones in there, it's like watching something that Andrew Wakefield has put out, mate. It's like fucking awful.
Right. But yeah, like so, they have this weird graph where if they took out the instances of 1 or even 2, which like are pretty statistically anomalous, then you would just end up with like a really like a much different graph. Like it's presented, I think, in a poor way to be confusing. But they gladly say, this is the weird bit, 14 Drukhari players won nearly 64% of their games.
And then, dude, but don't even finish the sentence before saying something outrageous. Finish it. But
it's clear that the tournament format allows pretty much any army a decent chance to win.
How can you know three? How can you have so little self-awareness?
I don't know.
I mean, the graph is above you, mate. Oh, you're 64%. That's totally normal. Yeah, no problems. Yeah. It's so daft.
It's so daft.
I can't believe I've written that. I can't believe it. Like, do they not have an editor? They can't have an editor, mate. It's just one guy in it, like, working from home.
Honestly, bud, I got no clue, but it's fucking great fun. Right, the bit that's here, right, that I want to talk about for a sec, is the fact that like the graph is just bad, right? Like, if you look at the difference between what we got from the Goonhammer article and what we got from Games Workshop, again, Goonhammer.
These guys could do with some lines as well, and also I don't know why it's wonky. Like, why is it wonky?
Because it helps misrepresent the data, Tom. That's why it's wonky.
Hold up. Let me get this back out again. Like 25 to 25. Okay. Yeah, that G Still Occult line looks a lot more shit when I do this. There we go. Yeah. Look at that.
Right. This is propaganda. Yeah. So like it's intentionally designed this way.
This is a Lib Dem bar chart if I've ever seen one, mate. That's what it is.
This is intentionally designed this way to obfuscate the information, which is the opposite of what the Goonhammer article does, because it gives us 3 ways for us to understand how good the information is, right? And also for us to understand it slightly better as well. Not the meta graph. Like, if there are some Goonhammer lads in the chat, not that. I still don't understand it. I've looked at it 3 times, and you've explained it to me. No fucking clue what that means. So if you want to explain that to me like I'm a child, that'd be great. Anyway, so every faction can compete is just categorically not true when we go back and we look at the Goonhammer stats, yeah? Because like I told you before, it was a bit of a basic breakdown.
They can all compete for the wooden spoon, right?
They can, yeah, right? Yeah. Is the faction win rates, again, and the Glico scores, if you look, there were 12 that were green and 22 that were red, yeah? And if we talk about the ones that are green, yeah, Drukhari, new book, Mechanicus, new book, Sororitas, new book, Harlequins, not a new book, yeah? Death Guard, new book. Custodes, not a new book. Imperium, I don't even know what that would be, so whatever. Black Templars, not a new book. Necrons, new book. Tyranids, not a new book. Is that Tyranid build with the Dimacharon still smashing? Is that the build?
I think I had another build I was actually going to run this weekend, but I can't get it sorted in time, so I'm not going to run it. I'll explain it another time.
But is that the Dimacharon's build? Because that would be cool if it is.
I don't think so.
How is it?
Well, I mean, that's a big sample
size. Is it a bunch of warriors? Like, fucking...
You could do that. I just want to hoard objectives and just, like, take Kraken and Swarm Lord and just run stuff at objectives and hold it.
All right, anyway. Interesting. But Tyranids is... I think that's Tyranids. Yeah, Tyranids.
Yeah, it is Tyranids, yeah.
And then... and then Chaos, which I assume is probably...
Oh, there's one more, mate. There's Old Grey Knights.
And Blood Angels. Blood Angels have got a new one, right?
Blood Angels are all Grey Knights. Yeah, Blood Angels got a new one.
Blood Angels.
That's all Grey Knights.
Is it Grey Knights? Fucking, this is difficult to read. I'm not going to lie to you, lads. Yeah, it's Blood Angels.
Certain that's Grey Knights.
And Blood Angels have got a new book, right?
What? And how the fuck... Dude, we need dots on these graphs. Holy fuck. I'm certain that's Grey Knights, probably. I love it. That's even straight. Yeah, it's Grey Knights, 100%.
And also getting some...
Liam, tell us.
The Custodes good stuff is just from the 9th Ed 4-drill book and penultimate 8th edition PA, so it's kind of an 8.5 book, as is Harlequins, I would argue as well, right? Like, but either way. Yeah. So the statement that any army every faction can compete isn't true. It's mainly if you have a new book, you could compete. Otherwise, you're going to get, like, smashed, basically. And then that's it. And that's the end of the differences between the two. So, Tom, like, the thing I want to throw out to the Twitch chat, and I want to throw out to you, Tom, specifically, is what I'm not trying to do yeah, is just rag on Games Workshop for no reason. It's not like, although it's hilarious to do so. That isn't the point.
I mean, they're just very easily memeable.
Well, because they do it themselves. Like, they didn't have to write the
Yeah.
article. If they just didn't write the fucking article, no
Yeah.
one would be part of it. Like, we wouldn't.
If this Goonhammer article was on Metawatch and the Metawatch article was on Goonhammer, we'd be criticizing Goonhammer.
Yeah, like, yeah, that would be the criticism, right?
Because it's not about like taking sides. It's about this one's really good and this one's not very good.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
My point is as like a community member, which I consider myself to be, yeah, and you, and everyone
100%.
else who's listening, like,
Yeah.
I think we already know what we're meant to feel or how we're meant to feel, like frustrated and annoyed and weirded out and confused. But ultimately, like, what's the right process to like go around this? Because it's very difficult to have some excellent work being done by Goonhammer, and again, excellent work done by those guys. Having excellent work done by them, and then having the company say something different. Tom, how does it make you feel? Talk to me about your feelings on it.
Well, on the articles.
Yeah.
I think they're interesting to read, and I think they provide some interesting exposition. But at the end of the day, my interest is mainly on how I think we should play the game, and that means I need to try and like find new shit that people aren't already doing, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what everyone's doing. It gives me a good idea of what I'm going to run into at an event in the first couple of rounds. And I think they're really interesting talking points. They just don't tell me how to play the game.
Okay, but then talk to me. So that's Goonhammer. Talk to me about in relation to the Metawatch article. How do you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you've got essentially this just third-party blog. I think calling it a blog is a little bit disingenuous these days. I know it started out as that, but it's grown into something that's really quite massive. I mean, I've been around for a while, and I mean, we've seen the days when like Bell of Lost Souls was like massive, and everyone used to go there for all the news and what have you. And Goonhammer's easily the best one that I've seen in all that time.
Agreed.
Because it very much knows what it does. It puts out quality content. It doesn't just do like a paragraph and then sticks a shitty meme from 5 years ago in between it, like Velociraptor or some shit. It actually does what it actually has value.
I like that
and
meme
it's also
still,
got
though.
a
Just want to
value.
say that.
Like, I think it's really interesting to. I mean, in 5 years' time, I'll come back to Goonhammer and I'll look at what 9th edition 40k looked like. I can get a great idea, and I think it's a really useful resource now. It feels like people actually care. And I mean, you guys are in the chat saying, "Oh, we've got 40 authors in the chat." It's like, yeah, because you don't just like make like 5 dudes just write all the articles. You actually have people who like care and are about what they write and like to put out good stuff.
But
and stuff like that.
And I agree. Like, look, we'll just fucking jump up all and down on Goonhammer's dick later because they're great. But like and all of their people who like aren't even necessarily full-time author, they just contribute. My point is how do you feel about the Games Workshop? How do you think about the Games Workshop content in relation? And I want to know what the Twitch chat think. How do you feel about like it's all well and good being like, oh, fuck them. But like
okay.
I
thought you asked me to compare the two. I actually think the Games Workshop article is a good thing.
Okay, why?
Not that I think the article is good.
Okay.
But I like that. So when I was like 14 or what have you, the only like news source that I would read is like the fucking Games Workshop site itself, right? Because when they did articles and stuff. I mean, there are still lots of people like that. And the fact that they're actually drawing attention to the competitive scene, even if it is a bit poo, is great as far as I'm concerned. Like, I mean, there's things that I don't necessarily find value in myself, certain, ranking systems and what have you. We all know my position on those, but it draws attention to it, right?
Okay, I honestly think, Tom, that like the idea that there are people unaware of the competitive scene isn't really accurate anymore. Like
well, why is that?
Because if you go on to if you're interested in 40k at all, yeah, in any way, you might join a Facebook group. Probably one of your friends or your local gaming store has some 40k people in it. And they would have to live under a fucking rock in a cave to avoid...
They do, though.
Hold on. To avoid every YouTuber that's ever going to make a fucking video, right?
Yep.
About something. I think that they would have to live under a cave. I think the idea that Games Workshop are talking about, talking about the competitive community at all is coming from a place where you, as someone who's been in competitive 40k for a very long time, especially because some people might not know this, especially during a time when Games Workshop actually actively was distrustful and hateful towards the competitive community. So Tom was a part of that. Like, he was playing Warhammer during that period of time. So he, like, you have, in my opinion, like a slightly twisted view on like how relevant. Like, if you look at like the most watched content, Tom, if you watch the most watched content, all of it references like competitive stuff, like all of it, right? So I think that like the competitive scene is fairly well established.
Okay, well, let me give you another personal example then. I started getting into Warhammer when I was 9.
Okay.
I did not know that Warhammer was a thing outside of the UK until I was 16 when I was in Canada and I ran into a store outside the West End Mall.
Really? That's interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not just about like adults who are like going to go on YouTube and like proper nerd into this hobby. It's about casual people as well, and even like kids and what have you.
Okay.
Like I didn't know this was even a thing.
All right. Fair enough.
I think you're overestimating some of the depth that a lot of people have in this hobby. They're not all like uber nerds that get like properly into it. You've just got like casual children. Like I remember going to where I work now at school, and I'd come like and said, "Hey, I play for Wales or what have you," and the guy said, "Oh, that's not even a thing."
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah,
Fair point.
there's so many of these. Yeah.
But like the okay, fair point. And there's some good stats being put in the chat. Thanks, K Keller, by the way, for resubscribing.
Oh, you babe.
That's really nice of you. Competitive dominates conversations online, but isn't how most of the community engages with Warhammer. Says Corrode. Now the point is whether so you think.
So yeah, that green bar is Grey Knights, by the way, not Blood Angels.
Okay, good.
I've got it.
Tom. My point is,
Yeah.
is that I think that the article put out by you think that the article put out by Metawatch is fine because it showcases the competitive community a little bit. Yeah. Me personally, I think it's disingenuous, and it like the community. Number one, it definitely is disrespectful to the competitive community. Yeah. So you're like, oh, it's all well and good that they're reaching some people, but they're generally being unfair to another group of people, in my opinion. But also, and really importantly, it muddies the water of the conversation that we're having as a group. Like that's the kind of key takeaway. How can we as a community have a good and open conversation when we have this other information being thrown at us that isn't accurate, right? Like that's the thing. Because now I don't know what to do about terrain. Yeah. Let's say I'd only read the MetaWatch article. Am I now designing all my terrain on Perspex basis, like a Games Workshop board? Yeah. Like, is that still the right way?
I think the Perspex bases really, really annoy me actually. Like the entire point of the Perspex stuff is to not ruin the immersion.
Yeah.
But the entire point of the terrain is to be immersive in and of itself. The immersion isn't based off like what color your mat is. The color is based off how the board looks.
I agree with that. Yeah. I would have been better if Games Workshop responses analysed the Goonhammer article, says Two Paint Studios. I agree with that. Massively. Loki says the Games Workshop article is not so bad if you view it as an entry-level article aimed at children because it's okay to lie to children, right? Only about Santa. Only about Santa. And Tom, you're a teacher, so like, is it okay to lie to kids? Is that what we're saying?
I lie to kids all the time. It's like, don't do that. Why not? Because you'll get, I don't know, like eaten or something. I don't know. Like, just don't do that, staff. I can't be bothered chasing you. That's why. I'm not going to tell you that, am I?
I think the Perspex bases suck. And I think ultimately that article sucks because I think what it really does is it presents a bunch of false information. What they could have done, in your point, Tom, is they could have taken a bunch of information from, I'm sure the Goonhammer guys would have loved to have just had their information plastered all over the front of the community page. And instead, they chose to do it themselves and lie about stuff. Right?
Mm.
Yeah, and I
think the intent is a little bit. I mean, it isn't true, so you could easily attribute it to a lie. I just think they're being lazy.
You don't think it's disingenuous.
In a way, that's lying too, though. Like if you're being lazy and you're just throwing out a number there, you know it's not true, so you're intentionally throwing out an incorrect number. So I mean, it is lying, really, isn't it? But it's about degrees.
Agreed. I'm not like, oh my god, they're like doing like maniacal Dr. Evil laughs with mustaches, yeah, while stroking a white cat and smoking a cigar. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's unhealthy to have to pick between these two pieces of information. Right? That's what's unhealthy, in my opinion. And I think ultimately it's probably bad for us as a community, is really what I wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah, that specific stuff, yes. I think the positive I was taking is that it exists, which is something I wouldn't have imagined 5 years ago.
But, yeah, okay, fair enough. I think that touches on what you're saying. Whereas if you actually look at like another game company / system, Tom, yeah, like they have patch notes. They have conversations with their community about the patch notes, why they're integrating it. Like other game systems do this. Like it's not like They're not at the forefront of an industry anymore. They make a lot of money, but they're not at the forefront of game design. There are people who make loads of games,
no way.
And it's really easy to just be able to have this conversation with its audience, right? It's very easy to just be like, hey guys, look, here's a problem. We're going to try and resolve some ways to fix it. If they put out like an article like, hey, we'd like 10,000 people to help us test 40k terrain, I reckon they'd get that. Like, I reckon they'd get those people.
Yeah, 100% would. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Instead of
100%.
lying. It's a weird flex, is what I'm saying. To be like, there's a supportive community that are like, hey, I'd love to help. Yeah, and they're like, no, don't worry, we got this. By the way, it's a fib. It's a weird flex, is what I'm going to say. Anyway. It's weird.
I mean, at the same time, don't listen to the community players. The community says a bunch of stupid shit.
Pardon me?
But listen to individuals. Don't listen to the community about patching the game. Listen to specific individuals and groups of the community. Don't listen to the wider community because it's full of all the loudest people are not very good.
Fair. Now, the Chirigan has made a point, so I'll make sure I'm really crystal clear about this. This article, more than likely, the terrain designed by Mike Brandt, the head of Games Workshop events, and the article more than likely written by. And so I will put that at his door. Really importantly, my favourite bit, by the way, from not that this is a childish irrelevance, Tom, but I need to bring it up. When you got a certificate from the event, it had like Mike Brandt's signature on. And I think there's nothing I'd probably want less on a certificate for having won some Warhammer than just some bloke's signature. Like that's really weird, but that's a side bit that annoys me.
I've got a certificate from my local club from 2013 over there that has the club runner's signature on it.
Is this a thing that happens that I'm not aware of?
Look, I can go and get it. 1 second, give me a minute. I'll go get it. I'll show you.
I think it's weird. Tom's getting it. This is good.
All right. I'm not going to show the whole signature because I don't know if that's a stupid thing to do, but I'll solve it. Yeah, look, see. There you go. There's part of it. It's like club secretary. There you go.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I didn't know that would be a thing. I'm not going to put them on certificates. I want you to know that. But yeah, it's a weird flex to start out because Mike's position as the head of events is new, and it's a weird place for his first event to design terrain specifically to, I think, solve a problem and then lie that solves a problem. I think that puts us in a bad place as a community for someone who's going to lead events for the community, in my opinion. And that's me saying it, not you, Tom. That's just me. I personally think that is that's where the buck should kind of stop because that's the person's responsibility, right? No one else is making that decision. But anyway, right. That's it. Unless anyone else has got any, will I sign your chest? No.
Shall we skip the list for today?
Yeah, we will.
We can do the list.
We'll do. I think that was a good talk. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, mate, to be honest, it's 8:45. I've got 10 grey notes to paint, and I'm trying to do them nicely because now I've got a big problem. I'm not talking about this.
Tell me about
now everybody knows that I'm not utterly dog shit at painting. I can't sneak past complete abominations.
You can't, especially
not
by me.
I can't.
Especially not by me.
No, I can't do it.
Especially not.
So now I need to do them properly because now I've got a problem. I have completely fucked myself.
You have. That's your own fault, ultimately.
I mean, I've won the full house now, mate. So I'm not calling that fault. I'm just going to disappear into Singapore and no one's going to see me. Okay, that's all it is.
I honestly don't feel like there's been a positive conclusion to the conversation because I don't think there is one. Which I think is weird.
Yeah, it's fine. Agreement is overrated.
Yeah, cooperation is overrated, Tom. Only the strong shall live, and only the weak shall perish. Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's the right way to think about it.
I said agreement, but we can go cooperation too. Fuck it. Every man for himself.
Let's go. Let's do it. I just would like, in my opinion, I love what Goonhammer do, and appreciate them and thank them for being a part of the community. Because if they weren't doing that, maybe someone else would be doing it. But if they weren't doing it, and this is why I think that they're such a great pillar of the community, if they weren't doing it, we would end up with this disingenuous information and it would be confusing. And that's a weird flex, is what I'm going to say. As someone who has a venue, who has terrain, who wants to do more terrain, recently I spoke to a good friend of mine who was like, oh, can you print me some terrain? I was like, yeah, sure, I'm going to definitely do that for your club. Because he was like, this is what I'm running. And I spent fucking, not hours, days, weeks, working out exactly. You were here with me at one point, Tom, right? Working out what terrain we needed. Yeah, so that.
Yeah. I came down and we were stood in the office working out what we were going to make.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know what the point is, but let's go. Let's fucking go. Thanks, Twitch chat. Hope you're all well. If you do have any thoughts about this, obviously love to hear it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, if you listen to the podcast, love you. Hope you're well. Stay hydrated. And if you're the one on the Twitch chat, thanks for being fucking gangsters. Yeah, you're all great. Thanks, Tom. We are running a 40k.
Anytime.
We're running a 40k event here at the TSN Arena, which is based in Nottingham, Captain's Clash. So if you follow the Honest Wargamer on Twitter, I always post up loads of pictures, and they're worth looking at. So you guys should check it out. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys soon. Don't forget to join us tomorrow, midday at 12 p.m. By the way, I do a show Monday through to Friday at midday, where we're all going to get Warhammer TikToks. And join up together as a group. Tom, are you in?
What? Fine.
We're all like, no, if we all get it together at the same time and then we all add each other, it's going to be a hilarious. Like, imagine I just get to follow 100 people straight away who are all Warhammer dudes, and then we just fucking TikTok Warhams. I'm into it. That's what I'm saying.
Sounds horrific, but I'm in.
Okay,
it could be great.
All right. Love you all loads. Look after yourselves. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys soon.